This, my friends, is the incredible LEGO Death Star playset from 2008, and I finally have it. Again. If you were a LEGO Star Wars fan in 2008 like myself, you likely already know the legend of this set. At the time of release, this 3,803-piece recreation of the Death Star featuring many scenes from episode 4 and 6 was the third biggest LEGO set ever produced, only being eclipsed by the Taj Mahal and UCS Millennium Falcon. I was lucky enough to obtain this set through great feat as a child, but eventually sold it to fund more LEGO purchases like I frequently did all too often. After years of regret and remorse, I finally found a good enough deal to reclaim one of the highlights of my LEGO-filled childhood. This behemoth of a playset has a great selection of 24 minifigures, a plethora of rooms recreated from A New Hope and Return of the Jedi, like the trash compactor, throne room, detention block, hangar bay, tractor beam generator, conference chamber, the large chasm for heroically swinging across, a droid maintenance room, and many others, all in a spherical, menacing Death Star shape. In case I'm not making it clear, this playset was a big deal in 2008. Although the set was recommended for builders 14 and up, it was clearly a set meant to be played with, making it the golden idol of any kid flipping through LEGO catalogs in the late 2000s. We have seen a few other UCS Death Stars released from LEGO, like the 2005 UCS Death Star 2 designed for display, and this 2008 Death Star was later re-released in 2016 with a few minor build changes and minifigure updates. This Death Star, with my nostalgia dial turned to 11, will always be the apple of my eye. With the rumored $1,000 LEGO Death Star on the way, I thought now would be the perfect time to build the legendary 2008 LEGO Death Star playset. I bought this set used and complete at Brick World Chicago this year. The reason I say complete in air quotes is because it was not complete. After disassembling, sorting, and resorting, I had to buy a handful of minifigures and parts on Bricklink to actually complete this set. So shame on you, Brick World vendor. Now that the pieces are sorted and prepped for building, I couldn't be more excited to put this thing together. Opening this large LEGO box reveals 4 sizable white boxes and an absolute unit of an instruction manual. Although this set has almost 4,000 pieces, the build is only separated into 7 different sorted sections. While going through and sorting this used set, I separated it into a few more bags than that to make my building and recording process a bit easier. As I mentioned earlier, reclaiming this childhood favorite means a lot to me, and I'll be sharing my very personal story with this set along this fairly long building process. Some serious JT Sandman 45 lore. Without further ado, let's witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station. This Death Star build gets off to quite the exciting start, as Bag 1 is not only the lower 2 levels of the build, but also all of the minifigures in this set. There are a handful of exclusive figures in the mix, but not all too many of them. Even still, the sizable amount of minifigures in this set are quite the treat. At first glance, there aren't many obvious omissions in terms of the selection, but I definitely do have some opinions on additional characters I would have liked to see, especially in regards to some of the builds in the final model. Besides all the traditional minifigures, designers didn't skip on the brick-built creatures and droids as well. I could definitely spend a while blabbering about these figures, but I'll try my best to breeze through them so we can get to building. There's a lot to get through. Taking a closer look at this awesome assortment of minifigures, let's start with the Episode 4 Gang of Heroes. Here's Luke Skywalker in his farm boy outfit. This version of the figure is exclusive to this set and the UCS Millennium Falcon from the year before. There are a few other outfits included in this set for Luke, and I'm quite glad they didn't pass up on any of them. This Han Solo outfit is one of 2 included in the set. The leg printing looks fantastic. I just wish the torso print was a bit more saturated to match the minifigure flesh tone. Here's 2007 Princess Leia. Like most of the main characters from Episode 4, this figure was also included in the UCS Millennium Falcon set, and later the 2009 Tantive 4. Obi-Wan Kenobi's inclusion was an absolute must, and this version of the figure is actually exclusive to this set, at least according to Bricklink. I usually appreciate updated LEGO molds, but I really do miss this old hood piece. Chewbacca is Chewbacca, definitely one of the more common minifigures included in this set. Certainly nostalgic, but the lack of eye printing is still a bit off-putting. Chewbacca's bowcaster and binders are also great to see. C-3PO. We've probably all seen this version of the character as well. Interestingly enough, the C-3PO minifigure on the box is using the 2005 Sandcrawler variation of the figure, with pearl light gold hands. Discrepancies like this made sourcing some of my missing minifigures a bit more difficult, but I digress. Here's R2-D2, another design we probably all recognize, featured in many sets from 2008 to 2013. Classic. This misfit band of heroes is awesome to receive in a single set. The eye size differences between the characters irk me a little bit, but nostalgia, so I don't mind. As previously mentioned, Luke has a few other outfits included in this set. Here's Stormtrooper Luke, an exclusive minifigure, with some big air quotes. It's not too hard to mishmash some figures together and create your own 2008 Stormtrooper Luke if you really had the desire. Here's our first Episode 6 figure, Jedi Knight Luke. This is another exclusive figure to the Death Star, unless you count this 2009 San Diego Comic-Con set, which I don't really count. Altogether, these 3 variations of Luke Skywalker are great to have in a playset of this scale, allowing you to play out any scene from both movies of Luke on the Death Star. Han also has another quote-unquote exclusive version in this set, with that nostalgic 2008 Stormtrooper armor. I'm a big fan of these variations being included. They probably could have passed up on including these minifigures, but I think their omission would have been quite obvious, especially with a few of the scenes featured in the build. Stepping over to the dark side, here's Darth Vader. This minutely unique torso print makes this figure almost exclusive, but it was also included in the 2009 Vader's TIE Fighter. To pair with Episode 6's Jedi Knight Luke, Emperor Palpatine was quite the necessary addition. I do appreciate the inclusion of some Force Lightning accessories as well. Grand Moff Tarkin is our last big bad, and is unfortunately the only Imperial officer included in this set. Of all the characters to not be featured in this playset, I think a handful of officers is probably the single biggest omission. Look at these bad boys. So evil. But that's not all. We've got quite a few other troops in the mix as well. The striking red Royal Guard is great to see, and there are 2 included in this set, giving you the ability to flank either side of any doorway needing guarding. 2 Imperial troopers are included in this set as well, primarily to be used as gunners around all the different turrets and lasers around the Death Star. I do think actual Imperial gunners would have been another worthy inclusion for this set, but I can understand why they didn't want to create even more new part molds for the helmets at the time. We also get 2 Stormtroopers in this set. Another classic figure for sure. What's not to love? Altogether, I'm fairly satisfied with the assortment of Imperial troops. If you don't mind a brief superfluous anecdote, this Stormtrooper with a darker torso print is one I purchased off of Bricklink, which was quite confusing to me at first. After some digging, I found this darker torso was from a minifig magnet set. Why is it a darker color? I have no idea. And am I really gonna place another Bricklink order to get the actual, accurate minifigure that I want? Yup. We're almost through all the minifigs, stick with me here. I call this guy Evil C-3PO, but Bricklink prefers Protocol Droid. This guy is probably the most true exclusive to the Death Star, as no other variations of the droid are included in any other set. You can't have Evil C-3PO without Evil R2-D2. This guy is named R2-Q5, but it's Evil R2. Lastly, some of my favorite characters featured in this set are the kooky brick-built oddities, like this Dianoga, the garbage squid monster lurking through the trash compactor. He is very silly, but I love him anyway. I would have revolted if a mouse droid wasn't included. It's such a simple build, yet so effective. This is definitely not a minifigure, but you build it during bag 1, so here it is. I don't really know why this very random blue cart was included in the set, but I'm not one to complain about more accessories. The interrogation droid is also exclusive to this set, but I don't know if you can really make that claim, as it's a pretty simple brick-built little dude. Still a fairly good representation of the haunting torture droid from Episode 4. Our final minifigure, another exclusive, is this white assassin droid. A cool figure, but I kinda lump him in with the blue cart. A very random and slightly questionable inclusion. Altogether, I'm still very impressed and pleased with this assortment of characters. They certainly didn't miss any obvious main character inclusions, but I still would have appreciated a few more Imperial officers and maybe an Imperial gunner or 2. This whole lineup is imbuing some serious nostalgia 5G brainwaves straight to my hippocampus. If you were hoping for a constructive and critical review of this set, you're in the wrong place. I could glaze this set all day long. How about some building time? With over 3,800 pieces, we've got a lot of LEGO building to get through. I could talk about each part of the build as it's being constructed, but I think we would all have more fun with some story time. I'll still stop and show off each and every feature and detail along the way, but this childhood set that I foolishly sold means so much to me, and I don't think I would be doing this video justice for my own sake if I didn't explain why this set is so impactful, even all these years later. I don't think my valiant tale will disappoint if you'd like to stick around for some serious Star Wars Battle Station construction. Before I dive in too deep, let's take a look at the complete first level of the LEGO LEGO Death Star, which is sparse to say the least. In the grand scheme of things, I don't mind how barren this area is. This level is pretty much just filler to complete the spherical shape of the Death Star. Once level 2 is placed on top, it's incredibly difficult to access this area, let alone see any of the details that might be down here. It's not entirely empty, with some big red barrels and some smaller barrels in another room. Another quadrant has these great Imperial wall light stickers, and this flexible Technic guardrail that I'm a big fan of, both of which will be seen throughout the set. The central empty column will later be used for an elevator that moves through the entire Death Star. Even at this point, with all of the minifigures and circular foundation of the build, we're still only halfway through Bag 1. Alrighty, so, long story short, when I was 8 years old, I created the Schoolbell font for Google, and my payout was the 2008 LEGO Death Star. Of course, I didn't just happen upon this opportunity when I was in 2nd grade on my own. This was part of a larger font initiative my dad was putting together with the original Google Fonts team in late 2010. For some context, my dad, Stuart Sandler, has been a font designer and distributor for the past 29 years, founding and operating the Font Diner and Font Bros, and creating hundreds and hundreds of fonts throughout the years. I'm not even going to say that you may have seen his work out in the wild, because without a doubt, you absolutely have. Like here, or here, or here, or here, or here, or here, or on the box of this LEGO set. A large majority of his work is categorized as retro display fonts, inspired by 1950s through 1970s pop culture. Without a doubt, he is the biggest fan of mid-century Americana that I know. After that brief introduction, we finally made it to the end of Bag 1. There's not a lot to show off besides this weapons rack and a spread of flooring details. Besides the open quadrant, the rest of the first floor is quite hidden, as I had mentioned earlier. Let's keep the time lapses rolling so we can get into the real meat and potatoes of this set. For some historical context into Google Fonts, this whole project was spearheaded by a guy named David Cattell, a lead engineer who had been with Google for quite a long time. At Google, employees are encouraged to use 20% of their week for personal projects, and David used his free time to greatly innovate the way fonts are rendered across the internet. At the time, you could use custom fonts on websites, but only if you outputted large graphics for all of your text, meaning it wasn't highlightable and it wasn't searchable. Once David figured out how to encode and decode text in the browser as web fonts, Google Fonts was born. The company adopted it quickly. If all the text on the web was searchable regardless of the font used, Google becomes a much better search engine. At the time of release, Google had very few fonts in their library, and in order to expand this project for it to be greatly adopted, they needed a much larger and more vast selection of typefaces. One year at TypeCon, an annual conference where the big dogs of typography link up and talk all things fonts, David approached my dad as a fan of his work, looking to expand the Google Fonts library. A large majority of my dad's work was creating display fonts, meaning fonts for logos and short text blurbs, not for reading paragraphs of. In an effort to create a more exclusive selection with a wider variety of easily readable font types, they decided to start from scratch to fill the gaps in the Google Fonts library. And there were a lot of gaps. Futuristic fonts, scripts, horror fonts, marker fonts, and rounded balloon fonts, just to name a few. But most notably to this story, my dad wanted to pitch a kid's handwriting font. With that, Bag 2 is complete. The size and scale of this Death Star is really coming together, reaching its widest point at the corner of these walls for the big third floor up above. Our second floor is still a bit empty, but Bag 3 will fill out a lot of the missing details. Taking a closer look around, the trash compactor build is absolutely one of my favorite scenes depicted in this set. The sliding door in the back is a great function, and the crushing walls on either side make for an awesome bit of LEGO play. The sliding door is moved using that plate with a couple red studs on it, and the rest of this room will be filled out in Bag 3 as well. The room on the opposite side of the trash compactor is also fairly empty for now, as is the big room in the other quadrant. That Technic assembly on the right side will be used for another small lift to the next floor, and there will of course be a handful more details filling out this room as well. The most complete section is the large chasm that Luke and Leia swing across while making their great escape, with 4 separate doorways at different elevations to pose up plenty of stormtroopers. I'm a big fan of how this area turned out. Not having a second floor in the chasm adds an important bit of variety to the whole build, as this is the single biggest area in the playset. There will be a few other ceiling details to fill out the build and its functions in this area a bit more, but it's already a great representation of quite a memorable scene from episode 4. Let's get to detailing. One day, my dad sat down with my younger sister Haley and I to pitch this handwritten font contest of sorts. At the time, I don't think we really understood how big of a deal this project might be, but what we did understand was that sweet, sweet cash payout. More than anything, my sister wanted an iPad, and I wanted the Lego Death Star. So a deal was struck. If either of our fonts were chosen by Google, both of us would get those tasty rewards. My sister opted to handwrite her font on paper, but my dad thought I was ready to handle Adobe Illustrator, a piece of software far outside of my league at the time. And so he plopped me down at his desk, and with my feet dangling off his chair, he guided me in digitally drawing the letters of the alphabet, all the numbers, and plenty of special characters, most of which I didn't even know at the time. After I drew all the characters, my dad went through and normalized all the text, appropriately scaling them to the same height and properly adjusting stroke thicknesses. He wanted me to be very clear in this video that none of the shapes I drew were modified, maintaining the authenticity of my second grade computer handwriting. Once word samples of all the fonts were complete, we sent the proposal off to Google for the team to decide which fonts they wanted to fully commission. Before we look at those spicy new details, how about we start filling up these rooms with our plethora of minifigures? The Dianoga, Stormtrooper Luke, and Chewbacca with a large bit of metal to brace the trash compactor walls, as well as all the random bits and bobs of trash, helped tremendously to fill out this scene. And the tractor beam generator room wouldn't be complete without a sneaky Obi-Wan fiddling with all the switches. Lastly, the chasm room certainly wouldn't be as interesting without Luke and Leia ready to make their jump, and a Stormtrooper posed up on the other side prepared to miss every single shot he takes. The empty room behind our heroes is filled up a bit more with the small yellow crane build in the center of the room and that lift I mentioned earlier. This function is quite smooth, with a string used to raise and lower this small assembly on the long white Technic axle. The laser cannon in the next room over is surprisingly accurate to its depiction in the movie, and this is truly the area where the Imperial Gunner's omission is felt the most. In classic late 2000s LEGO fashion, an old Technic cannon is included up top to give this weapon some functionality. Is it weird to be nostalgic for these two LEGO pieces specifically? The trash compactor's function is much more complete, with the Technic parts above to close each wall simultaneously. Very slick. Finally, the tractor beam generator can be disabled by pulling out the front-facing lever. It's a little awkward to reset, but still a very fun feature. Overall, floor 2 of the Death Star looks great. The big, mostly empty room with the crane and lift is kind of odd, as it's not necessarily depicting any specific scene from the movies. It's certainly not offensive, just kind of feels like a large area to be filler. Our next floor, in my opinion, is 4 for 4 in regards to excellent room selections and depictions, but we've got quite a bit of flooring to complete first. There was a lot of deliberation within the internal fonts team about which fonts they wanted to move forward with, and they also brought in other team members at Google to get a wide variety of opinions. Some of the fonts presented specific technical challenges, like connected scripture, but conquering those extra challenges only led to a better system overall. One day, the news I had been hoping for came. My font had been chosen. Now the real work began. To briefly interrupt myself, my SD card filled up on storage while I was building the second floor section. There's not much to see on the inside. It's built exactly the same as the other 3 floor sections on this layer. Back to the fonts. I had quite a few more characters to write. My dad still has all of those files, so all the images you're seeing on screen are my original drawings from 15 years ago. I wrote a bunch of words I definitely didn't know how to spell to create a wide variety of letters, and redid a lot of the characters and numbers from before. After my drawing spree, my dad did all the actual font work, normalizing all the characters and kerning the letters. Kerning being the process of adjusting the spacing between each and every letter combination. With plenty of assistance from my dad, I became the youngest font designer to draw a font digitally. Once our Google payment was received, my parents placed the order for the 2008 LEGO Death Star. Connecting the final floor section completes our next level. There's not a whole lot to show off yet, besides the sheer size of this set. The 3rd floor is the biggest in area, and it was quite surprising to me to see how large this Death Star really is. I remember it being big, but I haven't seen this set assembled in at least 15 years. There are quite a few sets these days with part counts over 5,000, but the amount of large plates and bricks included in this set make for a very impressive scale. Taking a look at each section, we can already see the bare bones blueprints for the large hangar bay, with some great stickered tile pieces on the floor, the chasms and railings depicting the floor of the Emperor's throne room, the detention block with an awesome array of computers and consoles, and a large area ready to fit the impressive, planet-destroying super laser. Bags 5 and 6 fill out the rest of these rooms, so how about some more building? One day when I got home from school, the Death Star was ready and waiting to be built, and I didn't waste any time at all. I ran that big heavy box up to my bedroom, dumping the bags across the floor, and started building this massive set. Before then, I believe my largest LEGO set was the 7744 LEGO City Police Headquarters, so this Death Star was quite the step up. From the time I received that set to the time I completed its construction, building was just about the only thing I did. I would come home from school, build, eat dinner, build more, then go to bed for days and days. When the weekend came, I was dialed. I spent as much time as I could building the Death Star on my bedroom floor on Saturday, but by Sunday I was completely spent. I wanted to see this thing complete so badly, but I was literally physically unable to at this point. I remember coming downstairs to my parents in tears, experiencing back pain for the first time in my life. At that point, my parents had to set some boundaries so I wasn't torturing myself to put this whole thing together. But even then, I still wanted to spend every waking hour finishing the Death Star. We dragged a small red IKEA table upstairs to improve my working area a bit, but it was still quite the monumental task for an 8-year-old to accomplish. After a couple weeks, I had done it. The LEGO Death Star was complete, topping my dresser as the proud centerpiece of my childhood bedroom. With minimal back pain at this point, Bag 5 has been constructed. Bag 6 finishes this layer of the build, but there's still a plethora of details to show off. The most complete section is the detention block, where Princess Leia is detained in Episode 4. The bars on the outside of her cell can be removed for easy access, and the angled door on the opposite side opens up as well. This room is incredibly empty, but the cell from the movie is equally empty, so no fault of the designers. The highlight of this section is the illusionary distant hallway, visually receding far beyond its actual construction. The large angled floor plates leading into the stickered backdrop works really well. The sloped walls on either side are also reducing in scale to sell the illusion all the more. Opposite the cell is a movable panel, representing the hole Leia shoots in the vent for the gang to make their escape into the trash compactor. Probably one of my favorite play features of the set, minifigures are able to drop down this hole and into the trash compactor room down below. To the left is the still fairly empty super laser room, but this upper control panel layout is absolutely worth highlighting. Those windows overlook the hangar bay, and this gear on the console can open and close the large blast door down below. This feature looks equally excellent from the opposite side. The hangar bay itself is great to see included here. It doesn't have an incredible amount of detail stuffed into it, but there's a certain satisfaction of the simplicity of this set. The details that are included stand out all the more. The final room on this floor is the Emperor's Throne Room, and this one will probably receive the most additions during Bag 6. The classic LEGO stairs leading up to Palpatine's throne are fitting details, and the platform on the left can be knocked down to give this final climactic battle some much needed action. There's a few random barrels for added details as well, but I'll be sure to show off all the additional highlights once our next bag is complete. Later that year, my family and I had the opportunity to tour the Google campus in Mountain View, California, and meet the Google Fonts team. David Cattell showed us around the offices for a couple hours, and my sisters and I took a whole load of pictures with the big Android statues outside, but my most memorable part of the tour was seeing the Google Micro Kitchens. They're literally just break areas stocked with food and beverages, but I thought it was the coolest thing at the time. Fountain soda machines, candy, chips, any snack I could dream of. I wish I remembered more about that tour now, but the break area was unfortunately my major takeaway. We made sure to hit the merch store on the way out, and I walked out with one of my most prized possessions to this day, this YouTube baseball cap. I wore this hat all the time. Even then, I was a huge fan of the platform. I was far too young to be uploading content at that point, but it was still something I dreamed of trying once I was old enough to create my own videos. Who knew all these years later, my two biggest passions of LEGO and video creation would combine to build this very channel. Literally, a childhood dream come true. Now that floor 3 is finished, let's scatter some minifigures across this level. Stormtrooper Han, an Imperial Trooper, and the second Stormtrooper are battling it out in the detention block, and I had to include the interrogation droid lurking outside the cell. The other Imperial Trooper is manning the super laser in the next room over, but the really exciting room to populate is the Episode 6 throne room. I figured this was the best doorway for our royal guards to post up on either side of, with Luke and Vader's duel taking center stage, and the Emperor spectating from above in his luxurious Lego throne. I also decided to drop R2-D2, C-3PO, and Han Solo in the hangar bay, as there's not really any other clear spots for these figures in the final build. The rest of the hangar bay looks great, with some sticker details above the elevator entrance and on either side of that old TIE Fighter cockpit canopy. A great part usage to represent Palpatine's large window behind his rotatable throne. After some online digging, I found out those transparent blue things on either side of the Emperor's big boy chair are apparently duty posts for Imperial guards. No minifigures can fit inside that assembly, but it still represents those details quite well. Unless my memory is serving me incorrectly, I'm pretty sure the throne room is the only area depicting scenes from Episode 6. Quite the worthy inclusion. Like the hangar bay, the walls of the detention block have grown ever higher, but the real highlight of Bag 6 is the Death Star's super laser. This sturdy Technic design allows the whole build to move back and forth, as well as angle up and down. The transparent beams coming out the front are incredibly fragile, but certainly serve the look quite well. At this point, the Death Star is almost complete. The final bag, number 7, adds 4 additional rooms up top and rounds out this giant, spherical Lego set. To this day, the Schoolbell font and Google Fonts itself are still alive and thriving. In the past week, Google Fonts API has served Schoolbell over 8.66 million times, being featured on more than 74,300 websites. I didn't end up creating any other fonts after Schoolbell, because I already had the Lego Death Star, but my dad has continued to design and distribute fonts to this very day. In 2022, David Gittell and Google Fonts, as a larger part of the World Wide Web Consortium Web Fonts Working Group, won an Emmy for the standardization of font technology for custom downloadable fonts and typography for web and TV devices. The award was for the second iteration of David's font encoder and decoder, Web Open Font Format 2, or WOF 2, which became standard in 2018. According to Google, WOF 2 is installed on all major web browsers and powers a vast majority of sites across the web. If you're ever on a website with a font, which is everyone all the time, now you know the people to thank for the internet not being entirely based in Helvetica. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I later went on to sell the 2008 Death Star on eBay to fund future LEGO purchases, a practice I did all too often, but it was the only way for me to experience as many LEGO sets as I wanted to build as a kid. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe I sold the Death Star to complete my Monster Fighters collection in 2012. My mom found some awesome pictures of that collection on my dresser, and the funniest part to me is the big "For Display Only" plaque in the front in an effort to keep my sisters away from my immaculate setup. I literally haven't changed. Of course, I went on to sell a bunch of those sets to keep buying more and more, but that list is literally endless. All these years later, the Death Star was absolutely at the top of my list to purchase once again. Placing the final piece, a 10x10 light bluish gray dish on top, the 2008 LEGO Death Star is once again complete and in my possession for the first time in over 15 years. What a treat it is to see this thing fully assembled again. Adding our final bunch of minifigures, Grand Moff Tarkin feels incredibly appropriate to place at the head of the conference table. With 7 chairs and no additional Imperial officers, I still do think their omission might be my biggest criticism against this set. You can also remove the top of the table for additional storage, but I'm not exactly sure what you'd want to put in here anyways. Back to the minifigures, I didn't really know where to put Evil R2, so I've dropped him in the super weapon firing room for now. Finally, the little Evil C-3PO, the assassin droid, and the legendary blue cart round out the placement of all the minifigures and accessories included in this set. Taking a closer look at those final areas, while the droid maintenance room isn't seen in either movie, I do think it's quite the fun inclusion. The repair operating table in the middle can be raised and lowered, and the variety of tools adds enough detail to depict a small repair area. The obvious red play feature on the left side raises and lowers that elevator in the central column. It takes quite a while to move the elevator through all the floors, but I think this play feature is one of the most unique in the entire set. It works excellently. Below in the hangar bay is Darth Vader's TIE Advanced. This smaller representation of the ship looks great for a 17-year-old build, with enough room to cram Darth Vader inside. The gaps in the wings are fine. I'm not sure how you could build this ship any slicker at the scale they're working with. A mounted Technic build allows the TIE Advanced to suspend in the hangar bay, and a gear on the floor above allows you to very gently move the ship around the room. The super weapon firing room adds a much easier function to rotate, raise, and lower the laser, disguised as one of the two Imperial consoles. I'm a big fan of the stickered targeting piece in the back of the room, featuring the countdown to blowing up the Rebels' secret base on Yavin on one side, and Alderaan in the Death Star scope on the other. The final room has two large turrets inside, which can be controlled simultaneously via a small assembly below. Very satisfying. The angle of the turrets can also be adjusted with the gears on the sides. So there you have it, the complete 2008 LEGO Death Star built in its entirety. I loved this set so much as a kid, and I love it all the more experiencing it all these years later. Transparently, the reason I was able to repurchase this set once again is because of those delectable Google ad bucks rolling in on the channel. Sincerely, thank you all so much for watching and supporting my LEGO passions. It means the absolute world. I guess I should also mention, thank you for 50,000 subscribers. Reaching that ridiculous number after only 4 videos is still insanely baffling to me. Creating videos on this platform that folks like you enjoy has been my dream long before my visit to Google. And I know I wouldn't be grinding this hard on my channel if it weren't for all of your tremendous support along the way. The ideas are flowing, my passion is high, and I couldn't be more excited to continue this awesome LEGO YouTube journey. I really didn't expect this video to be as personal as it ended up being, but I really hope you enjoyed that JT Sandman 45 font lore drop. If you ever recognize the Schoolbell font in the wild, now you know the full tale of its creation. The 2008 Death Star was a fantastic set in its day and age, and is still quite impressive all these years later. The upcoming $1,000 Death Star has a lot to live up to. While I would love to sit and watch this Death Star spin all day long, unfortunately, we finally found the weight limit for my rotating stand. A huge thanks to my mom and dad for indulging me with this ridiculously expensive set as a kid, and a big thanks to all of you for watching.